tell us a little bit about yourself, man. We can go with the obvious and say we've got this massive Prescript banner in the background, and that's kind of what you do a bit of time with. But who are you and what do you do? And just tell a little bit about, tell the people about you.
Yeah, I kind of came out of nowhere during COVID on the internet for the most part. I've been an in-person, like lifelong personal trainer, and quasi-academic. Like I've done a ton of schooling in the field of health and wellness. Like I've got the kinesiology, nutrition, and then a master's degree in kinesiology as well. Like I kind of spent a lot of time there trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up, under the guise of I'm trying to serve my clients the best I possibly can, but also just literally trying to figure out, like, am I prepared to go all in as an adult? But really, like, I don't know. I've been doing personal training in some capacity all the way through. So it started pretty much straight out of high school. We went to university to try to figure out, like, you don't know what you want, but working out is something I enjoy and passionate about. There's a literal degree for that. So let's get into that. At least I'll like service my own, my own goals. I'll improve my capacity to train if I take this degree. So let's go for that. Then I very much so lucked out part of the way through because the streams were like, you go kinesiology and then phys ed, you go kinesiology and physiotherapy, athletic therapy, or the like. And then you can go kinesiology, and it's like personal trainer. I don't know what you do with that.
What is kinesiology, man?
Sorry, what was that?
What is kinesiology? Because we don't have that in Australia. We have like exercise physiology, physiotherapy. We don't really have that in Australia.
It's a fact, exercise science. It's all under the same general umbrella, right? And so yeah, like I got out with my degree and immediately went to a commercial gym because I didn't know what else to do with it. And it turns out, like, thankfully, the things that I was using the degree for to improve my own training, I really got paid back in full, if not more, by the passion I had for actually having other people experience the same things that I had from that knowledge. And then over time, like, you guys all work in the field. I'm sure you have experienced burnout or experienced you overcommitted, under caffeinated, or whatnot.
Currently, yeah. Man, as I sip on my coffee, so under caffeinated.
So at a certain point in time, like it took me a while to see success the first go at it. But when I did, I worked so hard at it that I pretty much simultaneously hit stride as a personal trainer and was like, I can't keep doing this low key. Like no one knew that, but I was pretty much at my wit's end in terms of fatigue. And that's what kind of triggered me to go back to school and service my clients better by diving into nutrition and then staying there because a professor locked his talons in me and was like, you should do grad school. And like, it was all very serendipitous. It just sort of happened. And then I realized at the end of it, oh, I still want to just be a personal trainer. I want to help people with this knowledge. So I entered the field a second time with just a much higher ceiling on education, which then parlayed into getting into the education space, which is kind of where I met a lot of like the content that you guys have run into is going to be obviously through Prescript and the education space. And that was purely a COVID thing. Kind of like most of our worlds all sort of transitioned online. Like you had to adapt in some way, shape, or form, or else you're just taken wherever you are in the world. Like the rolling lockdowns are going to affect you at some point. So either you're locked down and your career's on hold until you are unlocked down, or you move online. And around the time of my first lockdown, Prescript was launching, like maybe they had done a couple of the rounds of PSL1, but I had taken it as they had reached out to our my commercial gym company. They had reached out, they were going to offer us certain things. We sort of contracted with them at the time for education. And that's where I got formally introduced to Shallow and just clung on ever since. Just got involved in the community, got involved in the process. And that's kind of what led to me getting more in the online space proper.
Mm-hmm. When you were talking about before, like you hit a point of burnout, diving into that a bit deeper, like what was going through your head at that point, and sort of how did you pull yourself back out of it? I know you said you went back to school and into your study, but sort of how did you deal with like the clientele that you had at that moment when you were like, oh shit, I'm kind of at my rope's end, so to speak?
Because all we do when we start to experience burnout, or most people, you just start to caffeinate more and more and more and more. And then you just burn out more and more and more.
That's a hard one because I have formally quit in-person or retired. We'll call it retired in-person personal training 2.5 times. We'll call it 3.5 times, whatever. Like the first time when I came out, I established my career and then I went back to school, like I said. So that first round, it was I'm sure you guys again have experienced this in some capacity, but like sales packages, like commitments from clientele, like long-term commitments in terms of like, we're going to do 100, 200 sessions, what have you, 50, even at the lowest. My strategy there was like, it's very hard to give up clients because you develop obviously the relationship with them, but then also simultaneously as you're developing relationships and knowing your clients to deliver the best service to them, you're also kind of having to develop like a network. And people don't realize that until it's almost too late, where at some point you may have to leave this portion of the field. And do you have someone that you're networked with within the field that you trust to hand someone that's very important to you too? Like if they still have 50 sessions left, like they're not just going to burn those sessions. So, okay, who do I have in my back pocket that would be a different experience with someone I trust at very base, not to hurt them? So that's more so the thing that I grappled with. At the end of the day, we ended up the first round. It was like, let's see if I can time this. Like school was kind of like starting at a set point, so there's only so much I could do. Let's see if I can time like client renewals or session counts to be as close to the end right there. Do you have the option to be able to have less of a like full on like contractual obligation to continue on? Like if I can finish them with 10 sessions as opposed to 50, like let's go, right? So to your point, caffeinate more. Even more, get as much as you can done, and then give everybody the option.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, go to school, come back out, get to the point where that becomes pretty much, it's my hallmark of my own self-destructive behavior is I will super saturate, I will be a workhorse to the extent to which, like, as I got older, like I'm in my 30s now, and it's like, okay, I got different life goals, I have different priorities, I need to be able to do things that are outside of my career. It can't just be like 70, 80 hours a week committed to doing this one thing. I got married, I got a house, kids, whatever I want to do, right? So I started ramping down again, only to have like some talks when management sort of, when I touch base with them, being like, okay, this is what I want to do. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to establish like an education position that you can be taking on. We're going to try to thin out your responsibilities so you can have better time management, better income, et cetera, et cetera. So that hooked me again. So I trained everybody out pretty much to a point where I had almost no clients again, and then had to pull it all the way back. And then there was the time where I finally actually quit after our first lockdown, because I was like, okay, now's the time. If there's ever a time to actually transition out of live, that's how we do it. And it was kind of the same experience each time. Your heart breaks for the people you got to leave behind a little bit. You do what you can to network with the people. And I'd learned from those experiences to have people that I trusted that I could best divvy out to. But overall, it's like there's certain things that are going to be rough no matter how many times you experience it.
Yeah, I like sort of when you drew in on that, the importance of networking, because I think it works in the other sense of you'd like to think that most trainers can get someone to a point, right? And maybe they don't all specialize in a certain area, but you still need to have those networking skills as a personal trainer to know who to potentially move clients onto that might have more experience in, like, say powerlifting, weightlifting, or something else where you could probably help them, but maybe not to the degree that they want. So I think networking, super important point.
And to your credit, like as you speak about, like even in the room that you guys are in, you three most likely have distinct skill sets. Some of you are going to be more proficient in certain areas of the training sphere. And like I am by admission, like I'm a general population personal trainer. Like I can do a lot. I've skilled up in a lot of different areas. I'm very diverse, and that was reflected upon the clientele I had. And at that stage, my education, my experience was kind of leaps and bounds above a lot of my peers. And when you have these extremely, at that stage, specialized cases, because people will then start to seek you out due to that knowledge base, it's almost like a homing missile for all the wildest case studies you can ever have, which is truly enriching and really tests how much you actually understand what you think you understand. Yeah. But at that stage, when you have to start handing those back out, even if it's for shorter contracts, you start getting very protective over who gets what.
I think it's such a fine balance between the two. But I want to ask you about the balance between communication and knowledge, right? Or we can look at it as experience or education, or what's more important. Like, so you've got and we look at education, right, as a bit of a technical skill. And then we look at all the other things to do with personal training and business development and whatnot as softer skills. I actually like to have a bit of an inverse kind of appreciation for those things. So I look at education as a soft skill, but then communication as a technical skill. although you were what we in Australia would probably use the word minted in terms of education, like you got plenty of education behind you, did you ever find yourself in a point where you were like, oh shit, I'm actually falling short on the actual technical skills of communication with other humans?
You don't know that until you really find that out.
Well,
like when you start rubbing shoulders that people have done the opposite path, right? Like I came out, I was a personal trainer for about 18 months. Then I went right back into education. So accumulative, I had like 8 to 10 years of hard education in the field. All the while, it's not like I wasn't working on myself and I was still doing stuff with clients here and there, right? But then you come out and you're experiencing like someone else's decades worth of on the floor experience. And you're like, okay, they know some stuff. They may not have the same words for it that I do, but it really highlights like, can you, as you phrased it, can you communicate it well? Can you actually translate your background? And do you have, as I think you're alluding to as well, there's this inseparable like marriage of experience as well as like actual like learned knowledge, because we're all acting in this physical field. And I just phrased it, I want to say, in one of my Q&As, the art of cueing or the art of education or whatnot. Like there was, I think, the commentary on sensation and stimulation that I makes me lose my mind all the time. But like exercise is the practice of, can I take a physical sensation, a physical understanding of how to execute this skill, this exercise, this whatever I'm driving towards? Can I take a physical sensation that I understand up here, translate that into words, cueing, tactile cueing, whatever I'm going to do, such that another human can then retranslate that different stimulus into what I need them to do? So it's like this, it's a lot more complex than just like, I'm going to, and it doesn't have to be, you can luck out and it's like, hey, do this. And then the person easily performs it.
Yeah.
But my background is over a decade of personal training on a commercial gym floor. Like you start to realize there's different routes that you're going to have to master to be able to translate your understanding of these exercises. So at the end of the day, the longer I did it, the more value my background in education actually started to deliver to me and my clients, because I had a physiological baseline book learned understanding of what was supposed to be happening. But the more experience I had where those all missed, they missed so hard. They did nothing for the clients at all. You very rapidly start to figure out like how to actually translate in the way that a normal human would be able to do that whole translation line that I was speaking about.
Yeah. That's what I was referring to, the education piece being the relatively soft skill, and that communication is fucking technical.
Yeah.
But you never get taught it.
No.
You don't, through tertiary education, through other, like you're doing, you get taught the knowledge, but you don't really ever get taught, like, you know, what style of communication. Because I had this experience yesterday where I had someone who was teaching weightlifting and they just couldn't get it. And it was just something, a word that I used, and they suddenly understood. They're like, oh, I can't believe I got that. And in my mind, I just thought about it. I'm like, I'm trying to use 5 different types of like words or languages. I might touch them. I might get them to do something like constraints approach, and then they finally figure it out. But you don't ever get taught these things.
And when you say touch them, you mean tactile cueing?
Of course,
right?
perfect. Yeah. And I ask permission before I touch them. Before I get sick.
I think it's hard, especially like when you're in the realm of education. All the people you're surrounded with they have it, I'm not going to say the same, but a similar thought process behind, you know, they want to know all the technical things behind everything, and they want to have a really good understanding. And you kind of, when you move out into the practical application with, like, say, general population, I'm not going to say all of them because there are some that do, but most are like, they don't really care too much about the technical side. Yeah, there are the ones that are quite inquisitive and want to know stuff, but most are just like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've been very lucky. I don't know if you guys have, any of you gotten this, but I had one verbal learner one time. And I know, like, it's up for debate if those are things, if like the learning types are actual things, but whatever. But where you verbally just cue someone, you're like off in the back of the room, they're doing sport. You're like, hey, do this. And they flawlessly integrate it. It happened one time. It was the easiest day of my entire life. But aside from that, like you're saying, especially Gen Pop is really good at making really good at this. Figuring out like a dozen different ways and a dozen different styles of cues to deliver that same end result. That's a skill that doesn't, at least from my academic experience, obviously, it doesn't get really developed across the course of a degree, because there's so many other things that you're focused on that are obviously more like a book learned experience. A lot of the practical things, and it's going to be different around the world. I've come to learn that, like, obviously in the UK, Australia, North America, there's different certifications, there are different styles of actually qualifying you as a PT or personal trainer, whichever is the proper vernacular wherever you're out in the world. But so much in the academic space is you're so saturated by how much you have to learn through text, through anatomy, through physiology, through whatever, that the small doses of on the floor experience you get, please don't kill anybody when you perform this. Look, you almost did it correctly. Good, you passed. Like, there's just not enough time to really go down that line of here's how you actually teach it outside of just visually, does it look pretty good?
Yeah, we have like, sorry to interrupt, but we have like this very interesting job. So all three of us are physical trainers in the Australian Army, and we started Robar, and so we're primarily dealing with online clientele, right? We do have some people in person, but the bulk of our face-to-face experience lies on what we do at work. And like, so every morning, you know, we'll get to experience 120 completely different individuals in terms of recruits, and we're now teaching them how to strength train. And it's like, there is not one way that fits all. We'll tell you that right now, because throughout the week, we see 700 different people. You know what I mean? So
I was going to ask, this is a bit of a segue, with like, you do a fair bit of literature reviews. When you look at a paper, right, you know, do you have like rules of thumbs that you go by? Because I know it's a great segue, but yeah, I've seen that. You know, when you read the intro and that's their sales pitch, do you go straight to the methods and be like, can I even apply this?
I'm a little bit more like, I can skim pretty effectively because I've done a couple, right? Like I in grad school, I actually did a thesis-based degree. So I performed an actual study. It was in exercise science. I had to do the whole thing of recruiting the dude bros, the 18 through 25, that they're all like 185 pounds, the whole thing. So when I see papers, there's a lot of things that I can key in on where it's like, I know why they made that choice. I know why they did. Funding wasn't sufficient for this. They made this choice. Like, I can pick out like rationale that the average person would be like, well, this paper is bullshit. Why didn't they do it this way? Well, because money is the thing, and it's hard to take a biopsy from a human that doesn't want to give their muscle away forever. Like, there's things that you'll see that you'll understand deeper. But at the same time, like, those are important things to understand, as you said, to be able to key in on, is this a thing that if the average person reads the intro, the abstract, the methods, will they see something and run a little bit too far with it? Or will they understand, like, okay, these are the limitations across the board. There's going to be the stated limitations usually in a paper, assuming you have access to read the full paper and not just the abstract. But throughout the entirety of the paper, the methodology, the interpretation and discussion is unique too, because you're literally getting the interpretation of the lab or the lab group, like how they have perceived their results, as well as the totality of the literature in the area. You start to really realize the longer you do it, the longer you're in the field, the more experience you have both in the scientific process as well as the theme, dealing with the real humans. How much of this is fact, good? How much of those facts can actually be implemented to a meaningful degree that would change your actual behavior on the floor? And I think that's where a lot of people and everybody, like, it comes and goes in waves. Like, evidence-based, go team. Evidence-based is bullshit. You're just small. You don't know how to do anything. Like, it comes and goes in waves, but there's a happy medium where I think people just need a little bit better of an understanding on how to critically analyze these things. And as you said, I dig through so much of the literature constantly, especially as of late with the collective work that I'm doing, that's pretty much one of my biggest passions is, okay, here's what the thing says. Here's how you can actually pick out what is the relevant details. Obviously, it's going to be biased to my interpretation as well, like fully get ahead of that. But how can this become practically applicable? And do you have to actually modify your behavior? Or to what extent should you? Is there a context where it's a better choice? And so on and so on, right?
Yeah. You happy with that response?
I'm happy with the answer. I like that. No.
That was a response with a fucking cherry on top.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to go a bit of a segue, man. Like, we're meant to do this at the start of the podcast, but obviously we just kept talking and you do it so well. But we have this little section, we call it a Firestarter, right? I'm just going to rattle off, 7 questions here. You can say yes or no. You can say fuck off. You can say pass. You can elaborate as much as you want. I'm just going to hit them at you and you're just going to give me a response. You ready?
Yeah.
All right, man. The first one, performance or health?
It was performance, now it's health.
Ooh.
Okay, we can talk about that a little bit later. All right, here we go. Number 2, psychology or physiology?
Oh, God. Brain found my career, man. Psychology.
Yeah, sweet. Top sets or back off sets?
Top sets.
Gen pop or athletic population?
Gen pop.
Easy. It depends or absolute answer?
It depends every time.
Education or experience?
Experience, probably.
Okay. Cats or dogs? Why?
Cats, because I didn't realize I was a cat person until I got one. Because people don't like cats as much as dogs, and I feel like there's a gap here that needs to be filled.
And you're the man filling that
Can't
gap.
be mad at that.
If I go around, if I'm like within a meter or 2 meters of a cat, I just start crying. I get the worst fucking reaction. It's
Are you
crazy.
actually allergic as well?
It's ridiculous.
Oh, bro. Yeah, they destroy me.
My eyes puff up. I start crying and everything. It's crazy,
Yeah,
man.
kills me.
Let's talk about that first one there where you said performance and health, and you're like, health. Or you said it was performance and now it's health. Why?
What changed?
The internet.
You've got a lot to say about this, and that's exactly why we reached out. But yeah.
It's because that people first of all, I think that the two don't necessarily need to be mutually exclusive.
Sure.
To dig a little bit the answer, I feel like the internet and especially social media is full of extremism, which ties into one of the other questions about absolutism versus it depends. But if you don't have one, you're really putting all your eggs in your basket for something that may not actually matter long term. Like for you guys dealing with military populations, I mean, you kind of need health, but you also really need to perform because there's some serious dire ramifications if you're not able to perform. For, again, the changing of the context, the perspective, Gen Pop, even into if you're not literally an Olympic athlete or like the top tier athlete, like it can have, sports performance can have significant meaning. And I'm not trying to deter people from that perspective. But those things are fleeting, and your health is something that you really don't want to be fleeting. Like everybody has the option to live their life. Like you want to go out at 40 like a ball of fire and have the most kick-ass performance-based life possible. Good on you. I fully support your decisions. But generally speaking, the push on social media, the push on the internet, like because everything is so like here's the most polished version of everything you're seeing, as opposed to what actually needs to happen under the hood of every aspect of performance, health, wellness, the whole thing. I think that too much of it has been skewed to here, do all these wildly self-destructive behaviors for this one little thing on social media or this one little event in your life that may or may not turn into anything meaningful aside from at the time. And again, I fully promote you hit your PR, you win your local competition, you do whatever. That is savage. It's kick-ass. I fully support that. But the people I'm working with, having to pull people off the edge, basically, of how social media has skewed perception of health, wellness, performance in general. That's why I aim more towards having people understand like the totality of the ramifications of your choices in exercise, period.
I like that. And I think that's probably why you're such a big proponent of, you have a post that you post the boring stuff. And I think that probably ties in what you're saying there. I like to also look at, the entire training continuum that one person kind of starts to go on. Performance or health is not, they're not exclusive. They're definitely well and truly mutual, right? And so it's just like, there are time of the season, time of the year, time of your entire macro cycle. The performance is probably the goal, but in every other portion, health is probably the goal as well. So health and performance, I just look at everything else that I periodize that as well.
I wanted to ask a question because this ties back into the burnout stuff. Not only just us, but like clients in general, right? I have had this recent experience where I had a client where, I can't train much. I'm getting pumped work. I'm working 15-hour days. And I'm trying to explain to them that, 15, 20-minute workout might actually help your performance and stuff. How do you go about communicating that?
Leading by example, one. I think that's enormous. And that's tying back to the post the boring stuff thing. Like that's why I started. Usually I just get something irritates me because I know what real life is. I've been in the industry for like 20 years. I've like training for at least 20 years, in the industry for 10 plus, whatever, right? I know what real is. I know what the T's, like natty, enhanced. I don't care, but I know like what each one, the prongs of the industry in almost every single training vocation. I know what each one of those looks like. And what you see on Instagram, regardless of the training style, regardless of status, regardless of whatever, most of it is not actually what gets on social media. And it gives people this weird like perception on what it should be. And so the whole line of thought there is just like, be real with people so they understand exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Because even if you're going down that road of like everything's a PR, like you probably have a lot of stock footage because that's not every day or else you'll die. And so the like post the boring stuff, the 15-minute stuff, it's all leading by example where like, here, this is what I do in a day. This is, if you're a physique athlete, this is how I look, regardless of what I'm doing this suboptimal or I'm not supposed to do as the internet would tell me for strength. look, I did some cardio for my health and it doesn't take that long. Things like that, like leading by example, making sure that your audiences know, like, this is the stuff that you can actually do. And I didn't lose gains, or I didn't have a garbage workout, or my metrics, whatever your particular case might be following, if it's health metrics, performance, what have you. I did this in 20 minutes and this is what's happening to my resting heart rate. This is what's happening to X, Y, Z, right? Like, I think leading by example is an enormous one. And then breaking people out of like the holding pattern of trying to match monkey see, monkey do, match what they're seeing on social media in their echo chambers, because that's the other aspect of online living, is what you click on, what you view, what you like begets more of that, as opposed to like diversity of like stimulus intake. Like if I like one thing, that's all I'm seeing for like the next 10, 20 days. Cool. I liked something in the fitness industry. Here is all the supplements. Here's all the ass photos. Here's all the everything. My social media is
fucking wild. Yeah.
Lead by example, and then having people not be afraid to like break out of those echo chambers and let people know, like, yeah, like I love strength, I love muscle. Here's me doing cardio all the time, right?
Yeah, I think that probably ties into the next one, which is training is meant to serve you, not some jackass on the internet. Is that kind of, are we seeing a bit of influence between those two things?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that is like, again, like call me an infant on the internet. Like, not sorry, no, I am born pre-internet. I was here when it came. I am well versed in online everything. Nothing surprised me. But in terms of using it as like a business like avenue, right? Like having a presence in the field, I'm still relatively an infant. But you just start seeing like, okay, if you're an Olympic lifter and you deviate at all from this perfectly periodized program and you do anything that's fun or off this list, you're suboptimal. You're making it, and I should say, like, people don't literally phrase it like that, but the way that things come off, and when you interact with your clients, with as you spoke about yours, where I don't know, 20 minutes, that sounds like some bullshit. It's not, but maybe they're in that holding pattern because of the things that they're exposed to chronically. And so it's, if I want to go do arms, but I'm a power lifter, you should probably go do arms. If I want to do some cardio, but it's going to be worse for my gains than if I did X, Y, and Z, remember that you're not here to like appease someone that is a nameless, faceless person on the internet that has no impact on your actual quality of life. You're here to do the things that are designed to get you close to your goals in a way that you actually enjoy, because I think that's currently probably one of the most forgotten aspects of training, is that what you enjoy is the thing that you'll actually do the most of, which is weird because that'll come back every once in a while. Like, again, everything's cyclic, where, oh, what's the best diet for you? The one you'll stick to. What's the best training program? The one that, I swear to God, in like 2 weeks, that'll be the thing that blows up on the internet, because everything fucking goes away.
You heard it here first, and you bet I'm going to go home and make that post.
I'm going to post that.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to get a week ahead of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Were you going to say something before?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's, a lot of people probably don't think about, like, because you forget about that, the way the algorithm essentially works. It's like you like a couple of things and that's all you're going to bloody see on your feed for the next whatever. And it makes sense because like a lot of the guys I train are a lot predominantly CrossFitters or concurrent based athletes. And all the time, all they're probably seeing is like the top 10 guys in the world PRing every day and hitting crazy sessions and doing all sorts of random shit. And that's the perception that they get of the actual, whether you want to call it a sport or whatever it is. That's the perception they have, is I need to be doing this every single day because they're clearly doing that. And it's like, man, that's their month highlight reel that they're posting. Like, you're not seeing, you know, the boring grind that they're probably going through that you're also experiencing. So it does mess with perception, and you see that a lot. Do you get that much with any of your clients? And how do you sort of...
steer them away?
Yeah, steer them away, or sort of educate them that that's not necessarily the case?
Well, phrases is, especially as of late, which is I think what would actually call your attention, is I'm just re-weaponizing social media in the opposite direction. Like, all my clients, all my, like, the ripples of like the prescript community, the people I interact with on the daily, like just slowly having people through the reposts, the tags, like building like a network of people that support each other, and just having them break those algorithms, break those, like, again, I've used the term a couple times, like the echo chambers, like you like the one thing and this is all you see. Break out of all that. And realizing that, like, social media is fake, and let's make it serve us again. Let's make it just like what it was originally supposed to be and post the real stuff at all times. So that's kind of my method of it. Is I'm lucky to be old enough and to be resistant to social media for long enough of my life that it doesn't really influence me, and to the respect that it influenced my clients. Thankfully, I've been training for 20 some odd years. I've developed a decent body of work in like like I enjoy cross training, as you're speaking towards, like the CrossFit athletes, the cross training clients that you have. I love it. I'm the hypertrophy guy now. Go team, sweet. I formerly did some powerlifting, sweet. I know how to coach those things, awesome. That's great. But more than anything else, I'm a cross training. I enjoy cardio for health. I enjoy cardio because I find it, like, not to say therapy, but I enjoy it as a therapeutic mechanism, like, because it's just raw effort. You can blow out as much steam as you want, and it's very difficult to hurt yourself doing cardio. I really enjoy lifting weights for a pump. I like to build muscle. And it's just putting that all out there, making sure that people realize that it doesn't really matter if you're doing all these things, as long as on the recovery side of things, you're checking certain boxes. And I think, again, it comes back to just lead by example and make sure that they know everything that you're doing and not just the highlight reel that you referred to.
Yeah, I love that. Change the paradigm on social media.
Which goes into the next one, which is you made a post social media as an entry point, not an educational platform. I think that kind of embellishes absolutely what we're talking about now, where having people see these things and recognize the realism of training, right? And what it's all meant to be doing for you and why it exists and how it exists, rather than just seeing what needs to exist. These things are going to make you the biggest or the strongest or the best and the fittest and the healthiest. Well, it's not. It's just, I think Baxter has one of those things where it's like, just do the damn thing. And I really agree with that too.
Yeah, I think what caught me at the moment where I made that one is just like, and it's some of the higher level concepts that we actually teach as well, right? And what if we dial it into like the hypertrophy sort of realm? Because again, I'm the hypertrophy guy, go team.
Do you have any muscles? Do you have big muscles, by the way? Give us a flex. Give us a flex.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one. That's the one.
Some of those concepts, right? Like, if you're entering the field, especially with social media, because again, there's kids that are like 18 that were born in 2002 or 2004.
It's fucking wild, man.
So they're getting into the workforce, they're getting into the training field, because usually a lot of them will be 18 through 20 some odd when they're getting in, and their entry point for education is literally Instagram or social media. I know a lot of us probably had magazines. I had YouTube, there's bodybuilding.com. You have those resources. But again, I went through education hard and then into the field. There was always like some concurrent level of different prongs of education that were happening. Now people will get like, the caption is their education. And there's not enough attention span in the world, first of all, for people to read through true captions and actually be able to use it as an educational device. So they're getting hot takes, they're getting clickbaity sort of topics, and then using that as like, I must adhere strictly because these are principles of fitness, when the reality is it's a talking point designed, if the educator, quote unquote, the educator is being honest, it's designed to open up a conversation like we're having now, so that, oh, that caught your attention. Okay, here is the nuance behind it. Here's the application behind it. Here's what it's actually under the hood, the real nuts and bolts of how to use this idea, as opposed to, well, if you don't hit the muscle in every single region and every single length, every single workout, no gains for you, or this underlying muscle here is going to be more biased, so no gains for you. Again, people don't necessarily literally say that, but there's a huge perception when you don't have any background in the field. When you read those things online, it skews how you're going to interpret those pieces.
Absolutely.
Man,
oh my
so
god.
True.
Overwhelming.
Have you been on TikTok at all?
Yeah.
Oh man.
There's entire social media platforms that, like, my Facebook was made for me. Now it's purely so I can interact with people in the education space that I'm in. Instagram, I think I made my own. I'm not sure, but obviously now it's like woven into the business side of things as well as the personal still. TikTok, absolutely, I can't.
Man, TikTok is wild.
Mine was a thing for a while. Pinterest, what was the other one? There's a couple in that just like leapfrog.
There's so many.
So how do we fight it? How do we combat this, man? What do we do?
Be good for a very long time is just a general concept. Mm-hmm. Like, people think that everything just changes overnight for their career, for their position in the field, for whatever, for their knowledge base, for their experience, PRs, all that stuff is supposed to happen continuously. No, like longevity is the key to success in almost everything, but also like a willingness to not adhere to what the trends would be or what you're supposed to be. Like social media trends, eyeballs on your product isn't necessarily a good thing. Like helping people is the end goal. Like people seeing your stuff, having a huge following, having a lot of clicks, having a lot of dopamine hits on my end. Oh, that's great. But does this actually have a meaningful impact, right? And I think it ties back to my social media style. And for people that are just listening that don't, I have 1,000 followers. I'm a nothing burger on the internet, except within my own spheres, right? On the grand scheme, though, some of that is I'm a baby in the field on the online side of things, but I also elect to not do anything that would make me feel gross or to make me feel like I'm doing it to conform specifically to what is trendy or what I'm supposed to do. I can't be bothered to film unless it's in my own home. And when I'm not training that style, I'm definitely not going to crack out my phone in the middle of a commercial gym to film muscle building workouts. I don't have necessarily a background in graphic design. I'm not going to be building these entire like complex like infographic. So it turns how you found or how you got attracted to this conversation was here. I'm going to take a screenshot of a story that says a couple words, and then I'm going to put a caption underneath it, fully being aware that one of those is clickbaity. I try my best not to make it clickbaity, but like the photo has to kind of be an attention grabbing statement without being too slimy about it. But then the caption has to be something that I'm also proud of and would stand behind and not just a bunch of garbage. All of that is to say, I'm electing to stay true to myself, knowing full well that these entry points to like social media are probably the lowest on the rung of actually grabbing eyeballs. But that's cool. If it means a slower growth, but a meaningful growth, like that's always supposed to be the goal. It's not just I won fitness online because I have 1 million followers. It's who did I actually help?
I've liked the entirety of this conversation. You know, you've openly called yourself personal trainer time and time again, whereas people are afraid to almost have that title. And, you know, you stick to your principles, and that's original, right? Like a lot of people, we fight it so hard, and I always have this daily battle of like, will I submit to what the social media is out there and what's expected and stuff. But I really like that, man. To, you know, say I'm a personal trainer, because that's what we are, as opposed to creating all these fancy words, coaches, and I don't even know what else kind of thing. It's good to hear. Fitness trainer.
But also, if you need infographics, man, just reach out. I've been doing some pretty good work out here. Something I really liked about what you just said there. It's like, you know, what you actually make in the post, like all the colourful stuff and the fonts and the pictures and all that kind of slidey shit. That's cool, man. Like that's meant to be a simple message, like a pretty straightforward, simple message. What actually brought my attention to you was the captions, because I too enjoy a fucking caption. I know no one reads that caption, but that's where the crux of the information lies. And reading your caption, I was just like, all right, this guy fucking knows. And this guy knows the no. Let me have a conversation with him.
I think it's worse. I hate it when I see something that's really eye-catching and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And then you go down and it's like zero caption. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah. There's a balance. And that's what I found as well. Because again, like you try to play the game in so much as you're trying to find out what is the best way to capture enough of an audience to deliver a good message and start having the ripple effect, right? Not so much that it breaks sort of the truth to self, the personal trainer, as you refer to it within me. Like I'm not trying to explode out of that and just conform to whatever I'm supposed to do. But at the same time, you start noticing what gets the reaction. And it's not designed to be clickbaity, but it's like the more lengthy you go, the more in detail you go. I can tell you right now, if I see like a block of text, I'm reading the first 5 words and be like, yo, I'm out. I know too much. Like the degree of effort it is to try to filter out exactly your personality and what you're trying to say to the information point versus the return on investment for my time. Even I am not, I have not overcome like the what was the phrase I'm looking for here? The attention span deficit of like the general youth of today. No one can really like pack like 3 seconds of anything until it's a skip or a swipe. So like what I've noticed is you have to be concise, but you have to be true. You have to be very good at what you do. So breaking it up makes it easier to obviously read, but also you have to be able to take whatever point you're truly trying to make and deliver it in such a way that you're not going to be able to retain a attention span long enough to have an impact. Because if we're all being real here, I write for Barban. I have my own blog here and there when I have time that I still try to do. Like I literally will take requests for people that want sort of my opinion on things at this stage, because it's easier for me to do that than to think of my own topics. And then I do my captions plus prescript stuff, right? I write a lot, and it's like the least absorbable medium in today's day and age. So again, it's like the concession of truth to self versus will this get eyes. So you have to be really good at how you're doing it to actually still capture any sort of meaningful productivity out of it.
How did you start getting involved with Barban and writing for Barban? How did that sort of come about?
Just networking connections, man. Like I have been writing for a long time. Like I did some of my youth, just creative stuff. And then in obviously the education space, you do a ton of it. Like my thesis, I got raked over coals for like a year and a half of my life, like creating a document, right? So I have a pretty good handle on academic writing. I have a decent handle on creative writing that I didn't know I did until adulthood, when I started actually getting positive feedback on it. But Shallow from Prescript, he's networked and good friends with like the CEO, the founders of Barban, and they were just reaching out. They're looking for new writers, new talent. Like, hey, do you have anybody you recommend? And so he voiced my name to them, and they reached out. We sort of got connected. Handed them their writing test, which is like a demo article, and they're like, "Yo, you're on. Let's go." And it literally is. It's like circling all the way back to longevity more than anything else. Like I've been in the field for, what year is it?
I think it's 2022, man.
2022.
I think.
Over a decade now in the field. Before any of the like major, like the things above just working purely in the trenches, which is where I love, but like the things above just working in the trenches, or not, I don't want to say above, but like extracurriculars, like writing for like blogs and websites, stuff like that, doing education. It was over a decade of doing other things, like the more standard work before I got there. And then it literally was due to longevity, due to who I knew, people understanding my body of work prior, that I even got introduced. And then it was just perform.
I've got a selfish question I always ask, especially when you're involved in
Here we go.
No, because my obsession is like information management and how we interact with information these days, because there's so much out there, right? And being that you've been involved in the field for a while and you write a lot, you know, what system do you have when you deal with information? Do you have like an app you use, or a certain system that you go by, you know, when you interact with information, and how do you, like kind of, I guess, whether you accept it or not, or change your ideas?
I'm big into, like, obviously the experience more than anything else helps me delineate whether this is a piece of valuable information. And all information is valuable, but I guess actionable is a better word for it. In terms of finding it, I took 5 years off from heavy literature because I did an entire thesis, and at that stage you're like, cool, I'm out, I'm done. Not only am I done because I'm burnt on it, like I'm over it, but also because like it takes a while for new literature to accumulate, like meaningful stuff. Like it takes a long time to do studies, right? So like 5, 6, 7 years later, I'm diving really hard back into it and seeing some cool developments, but nothing's relatively earth-shattering in most of the spaces now, because again, science and development of information, it's like you're tossing, like sprinkling a little bit of extra detail on top of things like the big rocks that we've all kind of come to understand either through research or experience. So for me, it's like I took a long time off because any new developments, to what magnitude is it going to be a new development beyond what I already know and do? And now it's, if anything, it is back validating information I still had from the thesis. Like if we're talking like the fitness space, and maybe giving me a little bit more context to give other people more freedom with how they pursue their own training, because it helps me understand, to really like fully flesh out, answer your question, effect size, and then the experience factor of knowing like, is this an actual piece that the average person would be able to do or do consistently? So if there is a new like development in building strength, building muscle, nutrition, psychology, whatever, that's cool. Is the average person going to be able to actually place this in their program, in their lifestyle, in their anything on a consistent basis with which they'll actually see a difference beyond what they're currently doing? Because if I rock the boat with the promise of like 0.05% improvement, but it's guaranteed because science has validated that it definitely exists, is that worth me like rocking the boat on what they're currently doing when they have a strong handle and a consistent basis for what they're currently doing? So accumulate, I mean, PubMed, like just yell into PubMed for a while and see what comes back. Google Scholar is really good because you can tag certain things that if new research comes out. Mass has been a really good thing for me, especially a number of years ago when I first got into it, because it's just like here's all the work for you. There, go. Read it. Go.
Thanks, Greg.
It's amazing because like I love how they'll get the data and they'll run their own stats on it, and then that's just giving me some like trust issues now when I read things. So I don't have the skill set to decipher that. But I really like that idea of not getting attracted to the new shiny toy. You know, it's not going to be that groundbreaking that we're just going to redefine everything we know. I really like that because I sometimes fall into that trap of I've read a new paper and I'm like, oh, everything that I know is a lie. But then does it really make that much of an impact?
Well, that's how I got to the sensation equals stimulation post that I just made not that long ago. And like, hopefully this has come off as like, not plug for my social media. My social media is whatever, right? But like, exactly what you just said. Like, don't throw it like, okay, here's the new shiny stuff. All right, so sensation doesn't equal stimulation. That's a pretty hot take. Like, sensation definitely, all stimulation exists on a continuum of where your current level of training is. If you're an absolute noob, bands around your knees are probably going to build some strength. They're going to build some base muscle. They're going to help you align your form and technique based upon the external stimulus of trying to not let your knees cave. That maybe puts you in a better squat position. That as a coach and a trainer, I'm probably going to start leaning them back and teaching them the concepts that external device is helping them understand physically. All that is to say, apparently everybody thinks that everybody's just doing like a 10,000 band pull aparts, or they're doing crab walks all day long for the entirety of their career. And that's like everybody's program. Like, no, not necessarily. It all depends on the context with which you have that. So like when people say, here's this new data that says this exercise or this device is basically bullshit, I'm like, in context, probably not entirely bullshit. And I don't like taking tools away from people based upon like small, tiny little things like that, right?
That eases the mind.
There's a tool that exists for everything, and then you can apply any sort of context, and the outcome will change with anything that you have to say. This also kind of circumvents back to another post that you made, was something to the effect of like fitness is just like a flat circle or something. Do you remember that post?
Oh, I do. Yeah.
And I think what you're saying throughout this whole conversation is it's just a big reminder that, hey, everything just exists, but it all just keeps coming back around, man. Like there's really nothing new.
There's nothing new, and it's a reflection on the necessity.
Other than biasing your lats in a high to low lat pull down.
Exactly. If you're not doing that, right. You make no gain.
Yeah.
It's a reflection on the fact that people have kind of gone crazy with daily engagement, because apparently if you don't post every day, you're no longer relevant in the industry, period. Like if heaven forbid you post once every other day, once a week, like you're gone. You're dead to everybody apparently. Because like the necessity to post once a day, maybe some people do it twice a day, like they have to have constant engagement at all times. That saturates their product so hard, and there's only so much information, there's only so much content you can put out there before everything starts circling back. All right, lat biasing, super trendy. Let's make 7 posts in a row about lat biasing. Okay, thank God the pecs are a similar concept. Now I have another week's worth of content there. Oh crap. What do I do now once you've run out of those things? Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like fitness is a flat circle. You're gonna run out of content and riveting stuff to just start presenting once or twice a day, and that necessity to be like constantly in people's face, constantly relevant, like you're watering down your own product, because there's only so much like super poignant information out there, super relevant things that you can get through before you're starting to regurgitate everything you've already said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can sort of like, I guess as well, you can tell when people are running out of ideas and they like post something, you're just like, come on, man, like how important is that really?
Now now some people are turning to critiquing others how they do things with their little face in the corner of like, you know.
It's a super silly way of doing it. And like, again, like I'm never one to critique someone else's social media use, because it's your own personal thing. Like you are currently creating your brand. If that's what you're going to do, like you now have that as a part of who you are on the internet, right? But I think that tearing someone else down as a method of creating your own content is not necessarily something that I would want to do, because again, at least from my own personal perspective on almost everything out there, the problem is when I see something absurd, I can rationalize a way with which it could be useful. Mm-hmm. I've been doing this too long with too broad of a spectrum of clientele of different training ages, different goals, different everything, where when people get in these to go to one of the rapid fire questions, the it depends versus absolutism, people will pigeonhole themselves into, I'm this person, I'm the strength guy, I'm the hypertrophy guy, I'm the physio, I'm the whatever. Oh, this thing is trash because X, Y, and Z. I'm like, well, my several clients use it for this context, which means it's not absolute trash. It's just trash for your audience because you framed it that way.
Yeah.
And again, pulls tools away from potential trainers to have solutions to problems they may not have run into yet. And it takes, like, if people enjoy things, man, let them do the stuff. Like, if something's not literally causing harm, again, to use the example, like apparently everybody's doing like 10,000 band pull-aparts and crab walks with a band around the knees. That's their training. If it's as shitty as you say it is, it's also not probably doing anything other than wasting time. And if they have time to waste, cool. If they're attached to it and it's not being detrimental or positive to their training, and then they go do a bunch of other stuff that actually gives them the progress they want, deliver the information, but don't just start pulling in other people and just roasting them to try to build yourself up. Like, you're supposed to be delivering better ideas, not necessarily just creating toxic environments.
Mm-hmm. I like that. So if Eric could go back to 2012, what would he tell himself?
Oh, man.
Sorry to just blurt that one out for you.
Train more, I guess. Like,
Maybe that was a period where you were burnt out. Is that right? Was that like that burnout period? Yeah,
like,
okay.
I don't know, man. Because like, I
let's
went
choose a
back
better
to
year.
that when I was doing some nutrition. I think it, like, honestly, there's not a whole lot that I would change. I know that's kind of like, it's either you go back and change everything, or it's like, I would change nothing. It's kind of a cliche sort of answer to it. But I feel like I've had a very natural evolution where a lot of the things that I educate on now, as I hope would be for most people, are mistakes I've made in the past as well. So it's like, without the experience, the education, and then wading through your own like mistakes throughout your course of your own training, these are all prongs of development in being a better trainer, being a better client for yourself, having perspectives that you may be able to help other people with because of your own mistakes. I don't know, man. Like, I haven't made a tremendous amount of horrendous mistakes aside from maybe being influenced by other people on how I should be training. That's something that I've really realized in my 30s. Like my basically I turned 30. I was like, yeah, this is stupid. Let's like, I have a lot of people that are very good at certain things, and apparently if you're not, like, and I do ascribe to the fact that if you're going to be a trainer, you need experience. You need to be doing the thing. The thing can be whatever you enjoy, whatever prong of fitness you want to do, but you should probably be doing a thing. It got skewed to you have to be doing this thing in my brain, which was kind of it was adjacent to my actual goals, and that's where I would go back and make sure I didn't do that. Like, be pressured into training in certain ways that are either, I don't want to say trendy, but like perceived to be more valid as a coach than what I would really enjoy doing.
Can you give an example what it is that was?
So like, I've always, like, I got into training, as I'm sure a lot of people did, because like body image, like I wanted to look better, feel better, the whole thing. And it started like 12. Like, I was doing 5-pound dumbbells in my basement, the whole thing, right?
Yep.
And then the entirety of my own training before it was ever influenced by other people was I enjoyed building muscle. I enjoyed doing hard cardio because I was doing it again for body image. So clearly the answer to body image is do cardio, and then tons of pecs, tons of biceps, tons of whatever. And just, you slowly build from there as you learn how training actually works. But it was always like muscle centric, right? Physique centric. As I got towards probably university age, it was like, oh, you got the best thing for everybody. You got to squat and you got to deadlift. Thankfully, I was a super late adopter of the bench press because it's dumb. But like, in those cycles of like, okay, my goals are still this, but I have to do this. I have to squat or I have to deadlift. And then that just kept rolling, where it was just sort of this, for whatever reason, I kept like strength oriented barbell training as like the first thing. And then I was basically doing concurrent or cross training. Like, I would do a ton of bodybuilding afterwards, but it was always like, all right, Prelpin's chart, squats, and then all the other stuff I care about, all the way through until like my later 20s, when I realized, okay, this is dumb. First of all, I'm competing sort of, but it was part of like career development almost. Like, okay, the further along you're getting, you gotta lead by example more and more. And I'm not necessarily like shitting on this as a concept, but like, okay, we need you to commit to competing in something so that you have more experience if you're going to be a coach, quote unquote. Got it. That makes sense. Let's get into powerlifting. Neat, this is fun, but I'm never going to be the strongest. And like, that immediately just shuts me off. I'm like, why am I going to a competition if I'm not even going to win the local comp? Like, it's when it's framed as a competition, but I can't win. Like, this is now about my own personal improvement, personal performance. Well, I care so little about barbell performance, and the actual thing that would scratch that itch is building muscle again. So screw it. I'm going to go do the thing I wanted. Right. So probably that more than anything else, like not being influenced in my own training style based upon the perception of others, I suppose.
Yep.
Do what you like. I like it.
Do what you fucking love, man. All right, Eric, tell people where they can find you. What do you do? You know, talk about the collective and all that kind of stuff?
So now, as of 2022, Prescript launched the Prescript Collective, which I'm heavily involved in. Like I have my own personal training online business. It does virtual sessions, very, very limited, as well as online programming and coaching. So that's like the major prong of my own personal side of business. That easiest way to find that is like social media. So at Erg Bugera, I believe. I don't think there's any dots or anything in there. Or the website, ebugera.com. So it's just basically my name. Aside from that, we got Barban going on. So I usually do anywhere from like 4 to 7 articles a month. And I'll usually throw a dump on my social media when a bunch of them are up, just as a reminder to people that I exist on their site as well. And then the major prong, obviously, is Prescript, where most people have probably come across me. And that's lab work, community work, tons and tons of that. Like I basically attend every single one of the Prescript labs because I love doing it. And I also am constantly learning as well from other people's perspectives. So I run my own on Sundays. It's through the collective now, the Technique Lab, where we effectively bring up attendees' own videos, sort of so we can have a multi-pronged analysis. Like me and my associate, Kyle Baxter, we kind of lead the discussion, but we very much so try to get the perspective of other coaches to help them develop how they would coach, cue, and break down errors in lifts so they can translate that to their own practices. So that's the specific one I run. But then again, as you raise the Prescript Collective, it's a subscription-based monthly service where we have our own Discord server, ridiculous diversity of conversations going on there across the spectrum of training styles. We do emerging ideas lecture series where we literally bring in like anyone that we want, friends and family within the field, that if they have a particular strength in the field, to give a lecture, and we'll record it and we'll let our people see it to give them some exposure and also education. We have, as I said, the Technique Lab, but then the literature review that you alluded to, where I've been kind of given free license to organize my own topic per month, bring in as much literature as I want in terms of, it's not a literal literature review in the respect to writing a thesis. Like I'm not capturing everything that exists in this field, but more so trying to make an amalgamation of useful, actionable premises so that someone, say in the hypertrophy one that I did, okay, here is the general premises on how hypertrophy works, from loading of the muscle, tension, styles of developing tension, to now let's dissect all the literature that is relevant to this is how sets work, this is how reps work, this is how rest periods work. These are things that you can actually make actionable. I do that once a month on a variety of topics. The next one, spoiler warning, is sports nutrition and supplementation. So that's kind of like where I'm at primarily, is living on the Prescript Collective nowadays.
Yeah, the Discord chat is fucking, it pops, man. I'm on there too. There's, like you said, a very, very diverse range of people and opinions. It's great. It's good stuff. Yeah.
All right.
For sure. Sweet. Eric, fucking thank you so much again. It's 6 p.m. there, or 7 p.m. by now. It still looks like it's bright outside. By the way, do you live in an underground bunker or something?
Yeah, this is basically the basement. Like we got a split level where the upper level, we basically have it as like our living area. And the basement is like either my work or it's my gym. It's
right.
Like if I went out there, it's just, it's like literally, it's the COVID bunker gym. When everything locked down, I was like, screw it. This is what we're doing.
Basements are pretty they're like a normal thing in America, aren't they? Like, does everyone have a basement?
I guess that's a thing. Yeah, I guess like North America specifically, like in Canada, like I grew up assuming everybody had one, I suppose.
You won't find one of them in Australia.
No one has basements in Australia, so it's like such a weird thing. Yeah,
it's wild. No, because every time you have like a video, it's always like this up kind of angle, and you see like the corner of your roof and the walls, and I'm just like, this dude lives in a fucking concrete bunker. What's going on? Where is he?
Awesome, man. Thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate your time.
Right on, guys. It was fun.
Thanks, Eric.